And we're rolling. Okay, today is March. What is today? Today's March 27th, 2019. And here is your reading. So I took some notes on the laptop that I'm sitting right next to here. And let me review your question first. So the question is, should I still pursue my startup idea, or should I focus on being at my current job? You're going through a divorce right now, and so you said that the divorce will make the startup harder, and I'm going to be saddled with monthly payments. So there's some financial concerns here. So that's the situation, and let me get my notes on what cards I want to pull for you here. Okay, so let me just kind of orient things here. So I've got a couple decks that we're going to use right now. So I usually like to start off the reading by pulling an oracle card just for variety's sake. So the oracle cards, there's two decks mixed together here, hence the two colors. The Gods and Titans deck, and then the Goddesses and Sirens deck. So it's all sort of deity themed. This is my favorite oracle card artist, Jimmy Manton, and the books by Stacey DeMarco. So we're going to be using those. Just push those out of the way. And then the tarot deck that we're going to be using is the borderless edition of the Smith-Waite tarot here. So basically the standard one. So that's just an FYI. And I have an extra deck here in case I want to pull a card to just for an illustrative purposes. So these two cards here are the ones I picked using that 9-digit number you gave me. So this turned out to be, we picked you the 56th card out of here, and we picked you the 47th card out of the tarot. I like to start off with this oracle card just to set a tone for the reading, and I like to finish with the card that you picked, either to tie things together or just kind of put a period on the end of the reading. So I saved that to the end. So let's see what oracle card you picked. You picked Hathor, contentment. Okay, so that's an interesting theme because this really is, I think at the crux of it, it is about contentment, right? Contentment combining the financial aspects of what job and what can you manage while you're career-wise while you're undergoing a divorce. I'm just going to move these because I can see they're casting a shadow on the cards here. So I'm going to put contentment aside. That's a kind of almost kind of like what you would expect, to have a theme for this reading here. So I'm just going to start out by pulling 3 cards as a foundation for you. One, 2, and 3. So let's see what we kind of get initially here. Okay. Okay, well, so the first card is kind of interesting. And so I'm down here. So the first 2 cards are reversed for me. And let me just give you a quick statement about how I read reversals in tarot. So I usually read reversals as, at their fundament, to be blocked energy. And the way that blocked energy can express itself with the meaning of the card would be either something that's taking, like as a process, it would be something that's maybe taking too long, or something that's a really tough slog. Those are kind of 2 sides of the same coin. Once in a while, it can be an opposite meaning, a reversal, and then sometimes it's kind of a literal reversal, like if it's intended for one person, maybe it's intended for another. So just with that background, the first card we got just for the situation here is the 6 of Pentacles. So the 6 of Pentacles is about generosity, really. So Pentacles, the sign of Earth, and Earth meaning in terms of how it expresses itself in the real world is all about pragmatism and materialism. Materialism meaning like survival, Maslow's needs, your ability to put a roof over your head and all of that stuff, to feed yourself, things like that, your home. So there's the element of generosity. It really depends on the perspective here depends on who you see yourself as in the card, as the person who is doling out the money for the beggars, or as the person who's being the beggar. But the theme here is definitely generosity. And it looks like, you're coming from a place where being generous has been blocked for you. So I would read this as, something, and since this is, the trigger for this reading, even though it's about career, the trigger for the reading is divorce, so relationship issues. I would say that, probably one of the things at the bottom of the, not the bottom, what do you call it? Fomenting the divorce could be a lack of generosity, either in terms of like time, being generous with, I'm trying to think of an expression here. When you, giving someone the benefit of the doubt, if two people are in conflict, when someone says something that could otherwise be interpreted as neutral, are you giving them the benefit of the doubt? And there's like a better phrase, it's just not coming out right now. Assuming positive intent. I could, as a relationship thing, if I'm looking at lack of generosity as a relationship thing, it could be about money, but it could be about the softer things that go on in a relationship. So it could be that, things have been to a point where you say something neutral and no one's assuming positive intent anymore. And so you're not being generous with your, I guess, your emotional interpretation of what the situations are anymore. So this card, cups would be about love, but and swords would be about communication. So this generosity could be, that the whole positive intent thing. I would say that could be manifesting itself like, because it's in the realm of the material, this would be like I forgot to pick up the kids, or I forgot to do something, but there really was something important I needed to do at work or someplace else. And so, rather than like, if someone is forgetting to do something because of work or because of whatever, you could assume the positive intent like, he's really trying to earn money for the family. That would be the positive intent. Or, if you're not being generous in terms of that sort of interaction, it would be, he doesn't care about the kids, or he doesn't care about my dry cleaning, or he doesn't care about the groceries, or whatever the material thing might be. So that's kind of what I'm getting here for this card. The next card is really pretty self-explanatory for someone who's going through a divorce. So right side up this card, there's two like happy family cards in the deck. There's the Ten of Pentacles, which is not here, and then the Ten of Cups. Well, and that's why I keep this deck right here, so I can show you the contrast between the two. So the Ten of Pentacles is... Where is it? There we go. Okay, so the Ten of Pentacles, there, just for the contrast, these both show happy families. This Ten of Pentacles is 3 generations of a family. So there's the grandfather, the couple, there's a child over here kind of clinging to his mother's garment, and then some dogs. And you can see that there's this huge archway here, and they're living in this sort of villa type thing. There's like a family crest on there. So this kind of happy family is about material security. Like, we got married, we're rich, we're doing well, we're the 1% now that, well, that 1% pejorative, I don't want to say it in that way. We're doing really well for ourselves. So this is sort of like a great relationship, everything's hunky-dory, and we're in material security. This relationship, by contrast, is, there's a very modest home on this hill back here, and it's a rural area, but, the kids are like dancing a jig and kind of holding on to each other, and they just look really happy. There's this rainbow. And so cups are the suit of emotions and water. And so usually when people are asked, like, would you rather have this kind of relationship or this kind of relationship, they usually would pick the cups, because it privileges the emotional fulfillment to the material fulfillment aspect of a relationship. And most people, deep down, they would say that they want that, unless they're one of the, the housewives on those Bravo TV shows or whatever. So, and of course this is reversed. So it looks like, what the original hope was, was that the relationship was going to be the emotionally fulfilling relationship. And of course, undergoing divorce, it's blocked, reversed. That's what's crumbling right now. So enough said. The interesting thing is that this is often seen as one of the most positive cards in the deck. So this is the World. This is a major arcana card. It doesn't have a suit. If we look at tarot as a sequence, 10, the number cards are 1 through 10. So 10s are an epilogue, right? So it's like on an emotional level, this is like, you know, you reach a crescendo and sort of the climax at 9, and then sort of 10 is like the epilogue, the denouement, that sort of stuff, you know, where everything gets tied together, and it's kind of and it's the end of a story in a way. So, you know, an end to the story, it's like the ending of the end of the story here on the emotional path. Now this is the end of the major arcana. If you look at it, goes 0 through 21, and having the 21st card, if you think of 0 as sort of the birth, like that you're still in the womb, and then now you're supposed to come out of the womb and have this archetypical adventure through the major arcana. These are sort of the karmic events, the soul level events in life. 21 is the culmination of like the big things in your life. So I know it's hard to look at a divorce in a positive light, but if we look at this as a progression, as, you know, like what's been going on, what's currently going on, and where we're headed, it looks like something on a karmic level or a soul level, the shedding of this relationship ultimately will be good for you. I mean, it's going to be painful now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everything that sucks about a divorce is going to suck, I'm sure. But ultimately, this is telling me that this is something that was meant to happen. This is something that has enriched you as a person, and it's basically leading you to where you need to go to fulfill bigger things in your life, great things in your life. So I don't know what time frame it might feel that way, but it looks like this was meant to happen. It looks like there are good things to come. So it's hard to say I like this, but I mean, this is from a divorce perspective, this is like it's rosy, which is a weird thing to say, but you know, well, there it is. So let me look at my notes, and I was going to. Let me just review again your question. So, you know, so the idea is, the question is, should I pursue, looking at the career with the foundation of this divorce that's going on, should I pursue the startup idea, or should you focus on your present job? So, I'm going to do this a little differently from the way I would normally do it. So we're gonna pull cards for both of those paths, but I'm going to pull multiple cards, and I think at first I'm going to limit it to 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull 2 cards for the startup idea, 2 cards for the present, staying at the present job, or focusing on the present job. And I'm going to pull 2 because I want to look at the energy of both, but from 2 different perspectives. So I want to look at the energy of those 2 choices from like a personal fulfillment perspective, like not necessarily purely emotional, because there's a mental component to work. There's also a component to work, but personal fulfillment, I'll call it. And then the other aspect is financial. So I want to pull a card for each of those to see, well, fiscally, financially, what's the difference in energy on that plane as well, since you specifically are worried about alimony and child support and the payments that are going to be a consequence of the divorce. So let me go ahead and I'll start with the start off, and let me pull 2 for that. So the first one will be fulfillment. Okay. So we've got fulfillment in terms of the startup, and then we need finances in terms of the startup. Okay. And then let me pull, what was again, fulfillment. I'm saying fulfillment for the current job. Fulfillment for the current job. And then we're going to pull finances for the current job. Okay. Oops. I messed it up. There we go. Okay, so let's take a look at these before I pull any more. Okay, okay. All right, that's kind of interesting. So every single card that is, so In terms of reversals and blocked energy, I mean, a divorce ruptures person at their foundation and their family structure at its foundation. So everything is reversed except for the future. So where you're, well, I shouldn't say future, but where you're going, where your ship is sailing in life. So this is rosy. Everything else is just going to be a tough slog. I mean, everything's reversed, right? So that being said, understanding that everything is, no matter what happens, there's going to be a shit show because you're going to be trying to do shit outside of work and deal with work at the same time, right? It's an interesting choice of cards here. So my first impression is that, I mean, it's like, I would say the first impression is that it doesn't matter all that much. I would say there's a slight favorability to the startup idea. So let me walk through it. So Temperance, I love this card. Temperance is, I don't look at it as temperance. A lot of people interpret the Temperance card as moderation, like to temper your appetite or to temper, desires or whatever like that. I don't look at it that way. I look at Temperance, and in other decks actually this card has another name. It's called Alchemy. So I look at Temperance the way you might temper steel when making a sword by putting it in water to make it sure that it's so that it's hard, but it maintains both the right balance of flexibility and strength, right? That kind of temperance. So alchemical balance, like if you're balancing an equation in chemistry, you have to have the right number of molecules on both sides to react so that you don't have stuff left over. That kind of alchemical temperance and balance. And it's balanced in terms of creativity, right? There's chalices in this cup too, so there's an emotional component to this. Being emotionally balanced so that you can be balanced in other areas of your life, all of the water that appears in this card. So if you notice, there's the two chalices and the angel is pouring water from one to the other, but the water is actually moving diagonally here. And because of gravity, we know that that's impossible, right? So there's sort of a supernatural element to this card as well. There's like a divine guidance as a part of this alchemy that's happening here. So this is why I feel like the favorability tilts in terms of the startup, because the startup, in terms of your fulfillment, this is going to nurture your creative instincts. It's going to nurture your intuition. It's going to nurture all of the sort of moon type influences, I would say. It'd be a way to draw on your knowledge and expertise in a nurturing way, nurturing in the way that like a mother nurtures a child to bring it up. So this sort of nurturing here, that sort of moon energy, I mean, right? So to me, the fulfillment looks very favorable for the startup. Now, it was reversed, so it's going to be a tough slog, but it's reversed on this side too. So let me skip over here. Let's talk about the fulfillment aspect of staying where you are. So I do love this card. And you know what? I normally don't talk about this aspect of the card, but I'm going to talk about it first since I was just talking about moon energy and nurturing, that sort of, not mothering in terms of femininity, but mothering in terms of like having to nurture something to make it grow. There's an eclipse actually, sorry, not an eclipse. It's an occlusion. Sorry, an occlusion of the moon here. So the moon's, it's in a crescent phase, and so a lot of the moon energy is being blocked. So because of the contrast of the energy here, I want to point that out first. So I think in terms of personal fulfillment, because the moon is blocked in this card, I would say that staying in your present position, there's probably an aspect of it that's blocking that sort of creativity, the nurturing aspect of what you like about career and work and startups and entrepreneurial spirit and things like that. Entrepreneurial spirit seems like it's flowing over here. Entrepreneurial spirit, not just that it's not flowing, that it is it's actively being blocked because of the fact that the moon is in crescent form and it's being blocked by the shadow of the earth over here. Also, the water element over here, there's like flowing water and it's moving. And he's got his toe in the water over here in the temperance card. So like he's connected with that flow, that sort of the water energy. Over here, you'll notice it's sort of there's a land in the distance, but the water's shallow on this side, right? So it's not super dynamic. You can see that there's waves from the wind, but it looks like a still body of water. So the flow, I would say, over here is definitely blocked. Then there's the figure, the main point of the card. So this is the Two of Swords. Swords are the suit of air. They're the suit of mind and mental energy. They're the suit of keeping things in balance. It's a two. So that's the two is the meaning. The two has the meaning of keeping things in balance, duality, stuff like that. And looking at this figure, she's hoodwinked, blindfolded. And she's sitting here, she's choosing to sit here. She's got her back to the promised land across the water. She's got her back to all of that stuff. And she's basically contemplating. And you'll notice that she's holding these two swords in a very unnatural way. So one of the things that people probably don't know if you've never been to like a Renaissance fair or something is that an actual steel sword that can be used for battle is very heavy because it's made out of steel and it has to take blows over and over and over again. So if you look at the way she's holding these swords, you couldn't actually do that for a long period of time. Like you hold your wrists like that to support that much steel at that angle against gravity, right? So it's a very awkward and unnatural position to be in. And so it's sort of a self-imposed discomfort, shall we say, on a mental level. So there's definitely kind of, I lost my train of thought on that sentence. But the other aspect of this card too, especially in contrast to Temperance over here where the nurturing energy is flowing, her arms are crossed right across her chest, which is her heart, right? And so the consequence of being over here and just kind of closing off your vision, going into this contemplating mood, weighing your options, being stuck in your head about things, about like I'd say over here, there's a lot of decision making, a lot of, in fact, there might be an element of having to look the other way, like not wanting to see what's actually going on as a part of your decision making because what you know is best and what you're seeing happening maybe just are not jiving with each other. That maybe it either requires having your heart close off or it's actually closing off your heart. In terms of your passions, the flame inside of you, your desires, your emotional fulfillment, anything like that. So over here, I would say, on a fulfillment level, there's like kind of a mental stagnation. There is, I would say mental stagnation, a lot of decision making, but not in a way that actually advances you in any way because she is sitting on a bench. There's no motion. There's hardly any, is there anything moving in this card? Not really. So I think there's like mental stagnation over here, not wanting to see what's going on, a closing off of emotions, feeling blocked on that level. And it's tough because like there's the added dimension of the fact that this is a reversed card. So it's just a tough slog on a fulfillment level at the present position. Now, I'm going to skip back because we just had a 2 here, which is all about balance. So the startup, also you got a 2. So whenever we get a couple of numbers repeated, there's, that starts to be a pattern. So I would say that on this side, this side, the balance issue, keeping, in terms of, work-life balance or just balance around work, it's on the fulfillment side. The balance issue on the startup side is on the financial side. So we talked about the fact that pentacles are about livelihood, about the ability to put a roof over your head, Maslow's needs, finances, there are coins, so money. This is about having trouble balancing finances. So, but this card doesn't look that much better, actually. So I'll finish this one off, but So the Two of Pentacles, he's having trouble. Is basically trying to keep things in balance, and it's, there's this infinity symbol, there's the lemniscate kind of as sort of a belt wrapped around these two things, like something that will go on and on and on and on. So there's sort of a long-lived activity of trying to keep things in balance on this side monetarily. And it could cause that, trying to keep money in balance could also cause a little bit of emotional instability too, because if you notice in the background of the scene, there are these really pronounced, almost not comical, what's like fanciful sort of waves, like these ships are just being tossed and turned very unnatural, on these very unnatural waves, right? So there's a consequence to constantly trying to keep balanced finances in balance, and there's an emotional toll that can take, and that's the representation of the water behind him. So the startup, although I feel like everything is hard because everything was reversed, the fulfillment aspect is really strong, and that's going to be great over here, but the finances will be definitely hard to balance. Over here, the finances, it was the Page of Pentacles reversed. So it's both cards are about pentacles, is what I'm trying to say. So we actually got something that's ringing on the level of money for both of the financial cards, which is kind of interesting. The Page of Pentacles, I don't feel it's not the most positive of cards, because with the court cards, there's 4 court cards, right? There's pages, knights, queens, and kings. And if we look at them as progression, pages are the neophytes. They're the ones that are just starting out. Like the literal page is like a messenger, like you paging so-and-so, right? You have them bring someone a message. So they're really just kind of starting out in their career. So to me over here, this is telling me that, the current financial situation where you are, I don't know what your financial situation was before your present job, but to me, this is kind of saying in a career reading, and I know that you're, let me see, I don't remember how old you are, but I think like I think you're more than halfway through life, right? So for a page to come up for someone who's like past the midpoint of their life on Earth, that's kind of telling me that there's an element of having started over for some reason. So I don't know if like your current position is less lucrative than what you had done previous to this position, but that's what I would normally get from a page. Starting over, like the field in the background here is there's no shoots yet, so it's a freshly plowed field. There's no crops yet, right? The page being the neophyte. The other aspect of the Page of Pentacles is, if you look at all of the pages, I'm not going to pull them out, but he is like huge in comparison to the other stuff in the picture, and they all kind of look like that. And one of the things that represents is sort of the adolescent paradox of being, what's the word I'm looking for? There's like an overconfidence you have when you're full of hormones in an adolescent, right? Like in high school or whatever, you can just be like, you can have a bravado and an overinflated sense of ego, and like you can do anything. But at the same time, there's like an underlying sense of insecurity too, because you're in high school and you don't have a lot of life experience yet. Most people don't, at least. Some people have hard lives, So there could be that I'm trying to think of the adjective for dichotomy. There could be a dichotomy here too, where sort of the sense of self, like you are doing well, but the sense of self feels like that you're not doing well. Or it could be vice versa. Like you think you're doing really well, but you're actually not doing as well as you could be. I feel like that could be like that sort of like that weird sort of imbalance of perception too. So that's what I'm getting off of these two. So yeah, I don't know. Since income, people don't reveal that sort of information. So you'll have to kind of do with that information what you will. Now, let me look at my notes again. Oh, right. So I actually wanted to draw a third card for each of these jobs too. I wanted to draw cards for each one and how it relates to the energy of doing these things while you're having a divorce, if that makes sense. So what does it look like having a startup while you're going through a divorce? What does it look like staying in your current job while you're going through a divorce? Let's see if that just gives us an additional insight at all. So let me pull up like the startup plus divorce card. Okay, that one. And then let's pull the current job plus divorce card. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. So we've got two majors. So I would say that the, what's it called? The impact of both of these is going to be similarly significant, right? These being both major arcanas, like the one down here, and then the temperance. I mean, staying in your current job, you're undergoing a death. So death doesn't literally mean death. It's card number 13, and we talked about, you know, the major arcana being sort of like a karmic journey, 0 like kind of being in the womb to 21, the culmination of all of these efforts, like right before you start a new cycle. You know, you enjoy this sort of culmination of everything you've been working towards. So death is really the midway point on this journey, and the point of the death card is really about a transformation. There's like another card that I usually describe as the phoenix rising from the ashes. So that's one kind of transformation. This transformation I usually think of as like the butterfly. You know, a caterpillar weaves its cocoon and then kind of undergoes a death to emerge as a butterfly. So the current job, I would say, is to stay at your current job. Basically, the focus is going to be the transformation that's taking place as you go through this big transition in your life. There's a secondary aspect of this card that I sometimes bring up, and I don't know, I'll bring it up and you figure out if this actually applies to your situation. One of the things I point out about this, let me describe the scene of the card too, in case you know, you haven't thought about this card before. So death is riding a horse, and then there's these figures here, like this sort of an adolescent girl who's kind of fainting at the presence of death. There's like a little kid who's kind of innocent and doesn't know what's going on. There's like the bishop figure who's basically kind of like imploring, like, no, 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 you know, and then who's resisting basically. And then there's the king, there's the royal figure, the king kind of underneath the horse, or maybe kind of a little off in the background, who's already succumbed, right? The crown's lying on the floor, and he's already succumbed. So there's all this drama in the front of the card. But the little tiny piece of information that I like to draw in contrast is that there's a body of water back here, and there's a tiny little ship, okay? And what I always am reminded by the tiny little ship in this card is that, you know, these people are going through all of this drama because death is present, right? There's this huge transformation going on, and everybody's resisting because everybody's afraid of death, right? But then there's all these other people on this boat, and if you're on, you can barely see the boat. That means the boat can barely see what's going on over here. They don't know that this is death. They don't even know what's going on. So to me, one of the sort of indicators that death kind of, like the pictures that death paints for people's lives, is that you might be undergoing this enormous transformation, and then there's just like this ship full of people who have no idea what's going on with you, right? So you have been transformed, and you know in your head what's going on in your life, yet you're walking amongst, like, there are crowds of people around you that have no idea that anything's going on. So one of the things that this might be also the reason why this card came up is that I wonder if in staying at your current position, you are going to be hiding the fact that you are undergoing a divorce. And, you know, this is really telling you that in sort of like focus on the family, there's this huge drama going on in the foreground, but in the background, like your day-to-day life at work, nobody's going to be aware of it. Or maybe well, I did pull this for work. I was going to say maybe another aspect of your life, but this is definitely about work. So I don't know if maybe your intention was not to tell anybody. So staying here would be, one of the trials or tribulations would be the fact that you're not getting any support in the workplace while you're undergoing this huge transformation. There's a few other positive things in the card. Like, there are these towers in the background that appear in a lot of the tarot cards, and so it's kind of like the promised land over there, and there's like a sun rising in the distance. So it's a reminder that after you've suffered this horror, that there is, there's the sun rises again, and that there will be positive things in the future. So I don't know. I'll just kind of leave that there. And then over here at the startup, it's the Wheel of Fortune, but it's reversed. So the Wheel of Fortune, it's kind of like, like Don Quixote, the windmill scene from Don Quixote, where the windmill can like, as the windmill rotates, it can like cut you down, but it also can raise you up to heaven or whatever like that. So there's a lot of ups and downs, but the Wheel of Fortune is normally a good card because it's telling you that fortune is coming into your life in some way or another. Not necessarily anything to do with money, but good fortune in sort of like an auspicious sort of way. Like most of the other cards down here, it's reversed. I would say that in relationship to your divorce, I would say that I would just say that there's an aspect of the good fortune that's in your head about whatever you would be getting out of the startup. Whatever all of the fortune you want to reap out of this experience, when you relate that to the fact that a divorce is going on, it's just meaning that all of that fortune that you wanted to gain from the startup is just there's going to be an extra hurdle between you and it. That hurdle might be the fact that you have to share it with another person. That hurdle might just be that because you're so drained on dealing with the divorce itself, it's going to be hard to make the fortune happen. But there's definitely hurdles in between you, and if this were right side up, I would say that the fortune will flow for you despite the divorce. I would, since it's upside down, I would say that it's just going to be a tougher slog, or it's going to take longer, and because your energy is divided and you won't have enough to give to this, or it might be delayed for some other reason, or just harder in some way. If that makes any sense. Now, where are my notes? I wanted to draw two more cards for you too. So let me make a little space here. So we looked at these two choices. I'm going to draw two more cards. I want to look at a card for, like, can you... we didn't talk in detail, right? So I don't know if your idea would be that you would keep this present job and you would start the startup while you're still here, or if you would literally quit before starting the startup. So one of the cards I wanted to pull is, what does it look like if you're doing both of these at the same time? That might be your intent already, that you would continue working here, your present job, and then just kind of use some spare time, spare moments to start putting your feelers out there, getting this going. That might already be your intent. But if in case it's not, I want to pull a card for what it looks like if you're doing both at the same time. And then I'm going to pull a second card to look at, okay, is there a third option? There's your present company, there's this startup idea. Is there some sort of third thing that we're not talking about that's kind of in the back of your head, or that you may, whatever, or maybe that's about to present itself? What's that third option look like, just kind of generally? Just for fun. Okay, nothing stood out to me, so let me think about it one more time. So I'm going to pull a card for both. Okay, so this is the card for doing both, and then the card, I need to find a card for a third option. Okay. Third option, both, and then the third option. So both, God, another damn, everything's reversed. Okay. So the reversals again, everything's a tough slog. So doing both, I would just say kind of like no rest for the weary. Like, just to do it quickly. So this is the Four of Swords. Swords are the level of mind, thought, anxiety, stuff like that. I relate anxiety to thought because as you get up in the swords, the more thought energy you have, the more mental energy you have. When mental energy becomes excessive, that's when things turn to things like anxiety, depression, and whatnot. So that's kind of the energy there. This is the Four of Swords is all about mental recuperation. So basically the preceding card is all about having your kind of like having heartbreak to some degree, a great deal of disappointment. 1 through 3, like when you divide up the numbers, 1 through 3 is kind of like a mini journey, 4 through 6 is another mini journey, and then 7 through 9 is another one. So the previous card looks like this. It's like it's a rainy day, it's gray, your heart has just been broken and whatever. So you've just been going through a big, like, stressful situation. And then, so the next thing that you do after this is that you have some time for repose. If you look at the scene in the stained glass, the word pax, Latin for peace, is over the saint's head. And basically, you have the person relaxing, they're kind of if you look at the way their like the prayer configuration of the hands, that's about kind of recharging your higher soul. The way the fingers are touching there, that's kind of like connecting the crown chakra and the third eye and all of that sort of energy in the chakra system. And so this is a time normally this would be a time for repose because you just suffered the heartbreak and now actually, now I'm kind of getting what this was trying to say. But, normally it's about taking a rest. But of course, like, it's reversed. And that's why I said maybe there's no rest for the weary, right? You're already weary. You would normally be taking a repose. To do both would be a way to... it would be like the opposite of getting rest because you'd be so busy. However, if we look at this... Like, if we look at the harmony of the reversals in terms of all the other cards, the other way to look at this, and this would be where you know yourself, it could be saying that by doing both at the same time and having an overlap, it's going to be tough, but this is how you derive some rest and repose. If you're the type of person who needs distraction because the divorce is like sucking the life out of you or it's just giving you mental anguish or whatever, and if you're the type of person who really excels when they have something to distract themselves from something that they don't want to think about 24/7, you can't not think about your divorce. But if working is a way that you can have moments to yourself, like if in bed you're stressing out about it, but if I'm doing an hour of work, I can focus on my work, and I really can. I focus by focusing on work. You can basically have a moment of reprieve and rest from thinking about something like the divorce. This might actually be a positive aspect of working on both at the same time. It would be like a way you'd be overextending yourself to some degree because it's reversed, but it might be a source of repose for you. So that could be a good thing, doing both at the same time. Now over here, I pulled one for a third option that we haven't discussed here. I don't even know if one exists, but you got this star. And the star is a really good card. I mean, it's still reversed, so, everything's a tough slog right now. But let me show you the card before. Well, do I want to show you the two cards? I'll just show you the one card before. Okay, so the tower is... Death was 13, right? So like we're kind of dipping down on the journey in the middle of the major arcana, and like a lot of dark things are happening. The previous card, in fact, is the devil, and I'll show you this one. So the devil's kind of about codependency, feeling trapped, feeling like you're being oppressed, stuff like that. And then 16 is the tower. So the tower is a lightning bolt is striking this structure, the crown of success, like the crown of success, or the crown of whatever a crown might represent based on context. that's being ripped apart, and then this huge structure, this formal structure, is being destroyed, and people are just jumping out of the windows for their lives, right? So the tower is really about everything just crumbling beneath you, and down to the ground, and everything crumbling down to its foundation. And so once everything's crowned, is ground down to its foundations, and you just kind of have to start over again. And so the star after the tower is one of the ways I like to talk about the star is the fact that when you're in, like both of these cards are black, right? So you're in darkness, and then like the clouds clear up. Maybe it's still night, the clouds clear up, and then you see the first star, right? So that's that first glimmer of life and hope that after everything is shaken down to its foundations, that's giving you the glimmer of the new journey, the new goal, the new way you can shine. I mean, one of my tarot teachers likes to talk about the star in a really simple way. It's just that, where can you be a star? Where can you really shine? So from a third option, not not your present job, not the startup, there is a third option, I would say, that where things can start over again for you. And it could be that, it could be that star aspect that I just mentioned, like where can you shine? There might be a third option where your talents, your creativity, your ideas, your whatever it is you bring to career and entrepreneurial or enterprise, you can really shine over here. So if there's something the third thing that you'd mention, it looks like it would be a really positive thing to think about over here. Maybe that needs a separate reading or whatever, but there's some place over here where you can really shine. There's like the glimmer of hope, and I should show you the next ones in the sequence too. So that first spark after the darkness, the first spark as you rebuild, I mean, then it just it grows and grows. It grows into the moon and then into the sun, right? So brighter and brighter and brighter. But this is that initial spark, is the star. So it looks like there's another initial spark for you out there other than this idea that could pan out and be really good for you. I think that's all I'm gonna say. I want to get to the card that you pulled now, number 47 here. So you got the Page of Cups reversed. Okay. So we talked about the fact that the Page of Pentacles was kind of like, if you get that at midlife, that's kind of like starting over again financially, I would say, like from a salary earning perspective. The Page of Cups is about emotions. Like we talked about cups over here and here, about being on an emotional level. And so getting the Page of Cups, to me, is really indicating that to kind of tie it all together, and even with the Oracle card you got, which is contentment. So contentment isn't the same thing as happiness, right? There's the nuance. Otherwise we wouldn't have borrowed the word for contentment over happiness, but since the theme of the reading is about contentment and trying to find that through making career choices despite the fact that you're going through a hard time right now, I'd say that the Page of Cups, like it's reversed, so you're going through a tough emotional time right now, but just like, there was an element of restarting over here, I would say that, like, okay, on an emotional level right now, you're kind of throwing out the old and then starting over again, right? This has come to its conclusion, and the Page of Cups is reminding you that just like the tower that I was kind of referring to, like you need to rebuild on an emotional level again, and you'll notice that there's a fish poking its head out of the cup. So there's definitely an abundance, is the word I was looking for. There's definitely a emotional abundance out there for you, but you're at a place right now where you're starting over again. And from a thematic perspective, it kind of ties in with the contentment card over here, and it's going to be a tough slog. But I'd say that this would be the thematic kind of tying together for the reading here, like the need to restart again on the level of emotional fulfillment, but also with the hope, with the image having the hope of the future, that there is abundance out there for you. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say for now. I hope this was helpful to you, and I'll talk to you soon.